Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a week, but I wanted to come back with another tutorial Tuesday for you guys. Today I'm going to be doing eyes. I know in a previous video I had done like a quick how I draw faces kind of tutorial, but today I wanted to do like how I sketch out my eyes, including the eyebrows, and then also going over inking them with you to kind of show you guys how I like to go about inking the eyes on my faces. So for the supplies I'm using today, I'm using the Prismacolor Kohl Erase pencil, which is one of my favorites, and this one was in purple. I personally really like the purple, the crimson red, brown, blue, and rose colors. Those are like my favorite Prismacolor Kohl Erase ones. And then for the inking part, I will be using Pigma Microns in 02 and in 005. So a bit more of a fine tip on there to get those nice tiny details for when you're doing the eyes. Alright, so to get started, I wanted to do kind of just a forward-facing eye and I'm trying to keep these tutorials a bit more simple so you guys can kind of get an idea of how I do it personally, but also for me, like more simplistic tutorials or little notations help me to kind of figure out my own style in doing stuff. And so I kind of wanted to help you guys out and do the same thing, because I know for me, I didn't look at just one tutorial. I looked at several different tutorials from several different people and kind of developed my own way and my own style from there. And over the last few years, I've definitely changed up the way that I draw eyes in general. So as you can see, I do the curve, and then already I like to do that little like cat eye tail. And it's just doing the curve of the eye and adding just a little upward mark right at the end. So curve and then up. And then all you do is you kind of curve that little line back and then just fill it in, and you have yourself a cat eye. And you can make it longer or shorter, however you like. And that's really just kind of the basis for me. I'll go through and I'll change the way it looks and kind of edit it from there. But that is the starting premise for my straightforward eyes. And then I like to add the underline, and it depends on how you want to do it, but for simplicity's sake, I would say just do a nice little simple curve, and then when you get to the point of your inner point, I like to kind of just connect it with almost like a little C shape, or like a little loop almost, because it gives it the more like almond look in a manner of speaking. So after I have, completed the bottom of the eye portion, and I know these eyes aren't necessarily perfectly symmetrical, but what I like to do is I like to add the upper lid line, or this, I want to say it's called the second eyelid, something like that. I don't know the actual technical term, to be fair. But all the same, I like to add a line, and then I personally like to add just these two little dots. And that's something you'll see a lot throughout my art, is like little dots to kind of add detail, or just little like notations. And then what I will do is, even though I am going to ink this still, because I like to have, even when I go into coloring after inking, I like to have some more depth in this part. Starting at the corner of the line that I made, I will start to just shade that in and then get lighter as I come to the center of the crease. And so as soon as I reach those dots, I should be at my lightest point. And that's going to give just some nice depth and shading to those eyes. So then I will add the under eye lines. And I really just do one. Sometimes I'll do two, but that's primarily what it's going to look like. So then we are going to take and try and center our pupils, our irises, on both sides. And this is where I try to kind of draw one first, right? And then try and get that same kind of distance on the other side to make sure that your pupils are more symmetrical. And then once you've drawn the outside, just draw yourself a circle right in the center. A lot of times what I like to do is I'll draw two little circles. I won't fill them out, but right up in that corner. And I just leave them there, but I shade the other side. Just kind of give that dimension once again. And that's when, too, I'll go in and I will just flick a few eyelashes. Nothing crazy. Just start at the base and then just flick your pencil up and try and flick it into a curve. And that's how you get that nice, light, airy eyelash look. And then even shorter ones on the bottom. So you don't even go very far. You just get that real nice little flick. All right. And so that is your straightforward eyes. But then on top of that, what I wanted to add for you guys is just eyebrows. So what I like to do is I just do these little flicks and I kind of just shape it from there. And my flicks will get a little longer as I shape the eyebrow into a point. And I always like to dot the end. But we'll flick, 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 and then straight into a point. And simple enough. There we have straightforward looking eyebrows. They might not be perfectly symmetrical, but that's where you can clean them up as you go. You can adjust them. It's a lot easier, obviously, when, like for me, when I get a bit closer and really look closer at the image and have it zoomed in a bit more. Not necessarily with the camera, but like my face. Sometimes I get like 3 inches from my paper, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, so there is that set of eyes, and now we're going to move on to the second set. All right, so for the second set of eyes that I was gonna show you guys is basically just that like quarter turn look at the face where you really still see the full eyes, but it has more of the side look to it. So what I like to do is I start with the eye that's furthest away, and I draw a line and I kind of start with just a simple curve, but then this right here, this line, that's more like a wide U, I imagine to be the eyelashes. So as you can see. And that's where actually, for this one, I will already do the crease of the eyelash, or eye, you know what I mean. And then for this, instead of doing a point like we did up here, it's going to be more rounded, because remember, you're looking more so at a turn of the eye. So you're not looking at the eye necessarily full on, but you're also not seeing it completely from the side. And that's where I brought my cat eye back in, and I kind of just brought it down to basically give depth to the eye. And obviously this is for like a more cartoony rather than realistic style, which I mean is what I do, so it works out. And then just for reference sake, I'm going to put the nose in here just because it helps to kind of give you an idea of where to draw the next eye. So I just did a simple line, real simple curves, and right at that top you're gonna put that eyebrow. And that one is going to be shorter because remember, you're not seeing the full eyebrow. And so for the eye closest to, this one is going to be a little more almost square, because you're kind of looking at it, or at least this point here. So because you're kind of looking at it more at an angle, you think about in this sense where you have this more squared but rounded corner, I guess is the term I could use. And what we're gonna do is you can bring that to a point just like that. Like I said, I love putting in those cat eyes because they do help me at least. And kind of square off each side so it almost looks something like this, but you have more a rounded edge around it, if that helps. So you can draw that kind of image and then just round off the edges to give you that eye. And then we're going to put in that crease line. And like I said, I love doing my little dots. And I already have the cat eye in place, so that works out. And then I just do my flicks to add those eyelashes, my under crease, and some little flicks. And then we're going to add that top eyebrow. Maybe I'll give her like a curious look where her eyebrow's up. And then for this, what I like to do personally, whenever I do a 3/4 face, quarter turn, whatever, however you want to word it, is I like to make the eyes look back at the center, or at least look into like the corner. So it might not look exactly or like right at you, so to speak, for the image, but it's going to be looking. Right? And you just do the same thing, like a little half moon line towards the corners, and then draw your circle in the center. For this one, you're not going to have a full circle, so just kind of imagine where that circle would be and fill in all the spots. If you needed to, you could draw yourself the light circle for the whole image and put it in there if you're worried about it looking even. But most often, or more often than not, you shouldn't have to do that. And that nose is kind of throwing me off, just because it's driving me a little crazy. But yeah, and there we have the 3/4 of the face, or the quarter turn, however you want to word it. And then the same thing, I almost completely forgot until I was looking at it, going from that corner and just shading. And then once you get to the dots, you should be at your lightest moment. And you can actually do the same on the bottom if you'd like, where you just add a light bit of shading from the corner of the eye towards the center. And the same thing, if you think of like makeup highlights, which is sometimes, like I've stated before, my favorite way of mapping where I want to do coloring is oftentimes you'll put your highlights in the center creases of your eyes to make your eyes pop a little bit more. And so that's why I would shade from the outer corner towards the inner corner and having the lightest point be at the inner corner there. All right, so there's that, nice and simple. And for the last eye, I figured I would just show you guys a profile eye on how I draw it. And then always look at references for all of these, because it's going to make it easier for you guys. I know it made it easier for me, and I looked at tons of different references. Sometimes I still look at references, but don't hold yourself to just one reference, because I don't know, it's a little harder to just go off one reference and get a full variety of, or kind of figure out your own style from that, because you're not learning from multiple different places. You're learning from one tutorial or one reference. So having the variety kind of helps you to make your own unique style of eyes, because all eyes are unique, just like all faces are unique. So it's just kind of correlating with that kind of thought process. So for the last eye, the profile look, what I like to do is, it's almost a straight line, but right towards the end you kind of curve, right? And I like to just put a little dot there because that helps me think of, oh, that's where my eyes are going to meet together. And for this bottom line, what you're going to do is you're going to slowly curve it and wrap it around, but at the end, you're going to give it that kind of hook. And you want that hook because you want to remember you're not looking at the front of the eye. You're not looking at 3/4 of the eye, you are looking at the side of the eye. So the eye is going to have more of a three-dimensional pop to it. And sometimes what I like to do even is you can kind of do a little like triangle there or a little dot there to make you think of like the inner eye, you know. And it doesn't do much. It doesn't look very fancy. It doesn't make much difference. It kind of just gives that little added depth for you. And then what I do is just simply making the crease lines, and I will do about 2 or 3 here, same on the bottom. And then I would flick the eyelashes towards the eye and also down upon the eye. So then you're going to do almost your half moon. And then when you do, so when you do the eye, right, and you go to do the pupil, remember that with an eye being three-dimensional, the pupil doesn't actually touch the outer edge of the eye. It's kind of crazy like that. If you ever look closely at pictures, you'll notice that. And that's just a easy little reference to think of and to remember. And then think about it like this, right? So we put our eyebrows come a little bit forward, because remember the eyebrows tend to sit over the eye. And then from there you can kind of create your profile lines. And I'm just doing that for a little bit of reference. There you go. So I try to make it real simple. If you think about the profile eye, the biggest thing is think about making a triangle, but I like to make like a curvy triangle. So it's like a triangle with curves, except the bottom one curves up, I guess. I don't know why I did outer curves, but the bottom one curves the same way that the top one curves. And then you just put your little curve in the middle. And then you just add your little details. Alright, so simple enough. I just wanted to give you guys 3 basic eye tutorials. And now I'm going to show you how to ink each one of these. Alright, so what I like to do first and foremost for my inking is I start with my 0 to number, and that goes for anything really. I have the Copic marker fine liners. I have also, even if you didn't have it, the what are these? The Stabilo, yeah, Stabilo 0.4 works too. I've used those. I have some of the fine liners from Arteza that are also 0.4 that work just fine. It's really just a matter of pressure and how you go about lining when you get into thicker pens. So I personally like to use a smaller pen because I like to go in and add small details as I go. So what I will do always is I start with my outline. And I do tend to work a bit slow. I know in my videos you'll see me speed it up quite a bit. But when I do the underline, I don't fill it in all the way. So I will do half the underline and then do my 2 dots that you see very often throughout my work. And then for the upper eye, that one I do complete. Or if anything, I will go most of the way and add just another dot. Just to say, hey, why not? And then that's when I go and I outline my cat eye, and I will actually give my other line some more depth. And then I like to go through and kind of fill that in. And do the creases. And the center. Now sometimes I do leave little gaps in between my lines just because I like the depth that it makes. And remember those two little circles that I had you draw up the top? Leave those there. And you see it creates almost where you can put your highlights once you do the coloring. So, or it is where you would put the highlights when you do the coloring. Or what I do, I should say. But then we do the same thing on the other side. It is funny because I do, and it's kind of the same with everything, I will ink different sides of the face differently because for obvious reasons I am right-handed, so I do try my best to actually work from the left to the right to avoid smearing. But sometimes I won't pay attention to that at all, and I will work from right to left rather. And I can sometimes have smears and other stuff. More often than not, when smears happen for me, it is when I am using a rather wet ink. And what I mean by that is like brush pens. Some of my favorite brush pens, they tend to leave a heavier ink line. And so when I go through, if I'm not paying attention of going from left to right, I will smear all day. And so I am extra cautious now when I use brush pens. Alright, so when I ink the eyebrows, as you saw, I kind of do the same thing, except for the other one I'm going to turn my page. And it's the same flick, starting at a point and flicking. And then as I get to the back, my lines get longer and they can also get thicker. If I don't like the way it looks, I can also just fill in a lot of it and then just leave. I like to leave basically the eyebrow hairs, like stroke look near the front of the eyebrow or the center, however you want to go about it. And sometimes what I like to do when I do my eyes is I'll add like 3 little dots. And then if you imagine, there's the nose and all that stuff. So real simple. That was all with the 2 or the 02. And now what I will do is I will take the 005 and I'll go back, and this is where I flick in my eyelashes. And they're real thin. And like I said before, when I do the coloring, I will actually leave the Prismacolor pencil down around the eyes just because I like the tones that it adds. Now, the only time that I will actually erase my Prismacolor pencil lines is if it's like the blue or the brown. That's why primarily when you see my line work, it is done in like purple or rose colors, because I like the tint that it adds to the tone as I'm coloring. And as you saw, I did add lines to the irises as well. And that's the nice thing with the 005 is that it is very thin, very, very tiny. Oop, had that off camera. Very, very tiny. And you can almost barely see it on the camera, but it is great for those little intricate details. And if you look a little closer, you can see all those little lines. All right, so same thing for the next set of eyes, going in with the 02. And for this one, I would start with the upper eye and kind of just start following my line work, but I also adjust as I go. So I like to make some lines heavier and some lines thinner to give the illusion or thickness of where eyelashes would be. I also feel like it can help with creating some depth. And again, I don't actually fill it all the way. I just do my little dots. And really simple. And even with my little dots, when I would go to color, I would just color the iris like it's there. I would go to about here on the eye and still color all that area, just to, the dots to me basically just kind of leave that open eye look and kind of helps you to perceive the black lining, for me at least, around the eyes as more of like an eyeliner rather than just the line work. So it creates, or at least in my opinion when I look at it, it gives me a bit more depth to the eyes so that it's not just, oh, here's some line work for the eyes to make them look nice, you know, or make them stand out. For a very long time, and I still do it now, just not all the time, it depends on what I am drawing, I would often start my images with the eyes, because to me, for starting, the eyes were one of the more important things to draw. And I say that because I personally, when I see an illustration or a pinup like I do in other artists' works, the first thing that I look at are the eyes. And the first thing that I am drawn to are the way the eyes look. And sometimes, in my opinion, it can make or break an image. Not to say that, you know, oh, other artists' illustrations are bad because their eyes are bad. Some people do beautiful work and don't even draw eyes in there. I'm just saying that, like, sometimes you can get lost in the eyes in a good way. And when you're able to kind of capture that, like, look at those eyes moment, it can sometimes bring the whole picture together. Especially in the way that I do stuff, I realize. And then just little lines in the iris. And then what you can also do, if you're just inking, is adding just some thin diagonal lines in that crease line. Will not take away from your eyelashes, but will add that extra little depth of shading that you were hoping for. Now for something like this, right, I know I don't have it drawn, but typically how I would do it is that would be your eyebrow crease, and then that would be just barely the side of your face, and then your cheekbone. And it would come down and you have your smile here. Oop, I don't know what kind of line that was. Your smile here. That's what happens when I just do quick inking. I don't even know what's going on now. But, oh, 3/4 face. It wasn't bad. Not terrible. And then I would, that's the nice thing with the 02, is a lot of times you can do so many shading lines with this. And I know I'm going off on a little tangent really quick, but just an example. Alright, and then for the last and final eye, remember that dot I told you about? Well, that is what I like to ink first when I am doing these eyes, and you can kind of see more of the way that I like to line stuff in this. Now this one, I will be using the 02 for a lot more of the lashes, because I do like to have some of those rather thick and bold lashes. And sometimes I will start and go under the line I made and curve it up like this to give that kind of dimension of the eyelashes coming off the eyes. And then creating the same thing. I don't really do much in dotting here, but I do pull that line out a bit further than I would normally in the sketch, because the nice thing, or at least what I tend to do when I ink, is I tend to focus a lot more on details that stand out a bit more. So I would do a heavy line sketch like that, but then here I come in and I still do my iris work, and I do these nice light little lashes. But I think about trying to create that dimension of how you're looking at the eye itself. And then obviously the eyebrow is shorter. And then, like I said, once I actually start inking, I can kind of see more of where I want things to go and how I want things to turn out. And maybe I'll do something like that where, oh, you can see the other eyelashes. So try to keep it real simple. I know this one was a lot more quick. These two usually to me have a lot more details because you're actually looking at them completely. And if you look closely, you can see even in this one, those little shade lines that I was telling you about using the 005 that kind of add that bit of depth without having to add color if you're looking for that black and white image. So I hope that this does help. I know it was real basic and real simple again, and I realized that these take quite a bit longer than I was expecting to with these tutorial videos, but I do hope this helps in some way and gives you a bit more depth. And if you'd like, leave in the comments below to what you'd like to see next week for Tutorial Tuesday, and I will see what I can do. All right, thank you so much for watching, and you guys have an awesome day.